Welcome to the Phoenix and Consolidated Art Glass channel. Let me teach you about Phoenix and Consolidated Art Glass. I wrote the book on this subject. Hello and welcome back. In this episode, I'm going to delve into Consolidated Glass Company's entry into the art glass gift marketplace in January of 1926. But first, let's step back and look at a little of the early history of Consolidated Glass Company. They were formed in 1893 through a merger of Wallace and McAfee and Fostoria Shade and Lamp Company in Fostoria, Ohio. However, that plant burned in 1895, and in 1896 they moved to Coraopolis, Pennsylvania. During the early history of Consolidated Glass Company, Nicholas Cott developed many of their colors, including their case glass colors. I don't go into a lot of the early history of Consolidated Glass Company prior to 1926 in my book, but if you are interested, they've developed lots of lighting glass. At one time, they produced 60% of the lighting glass made in the United States, and they made lots of art glass, including stuff like goutate and other fine artware, including tableware, salt and pepper shakers, etc. I provide information on the Fostoria, Ohio Glass Association, and you should also look for two books by Melvin Murray, Fostoria, Ohio Glass 1 and Fostoria, Ohio Glass 2. He covers a lot of their banquet lamps, their early tableware, including floret, goutate, etc. In the next part of this video, I'm going to get into the actual entry of Consolidated into the art glass marketplace. That happened in January 1926 at the Fort Pitt Hotel, which holds an annual trade meeting to show new pottery and glass to the trade. Reuben Haley had a large influence on Consolidated Glass Company and its ownership. He convinced them to form an art glass division, and in the last half of 1925, he developed and designed an art glass line for them that was introduced in January 1926 at the Fort Pitt Hotel at a trade show for pottery and glass trade exhibitors. The line was called Martele, or hand wrought. It was basically a takeoff on the French Lalique exhibited in the 1925 Paris exposition. There were many pieces. One of the more common pieces is the dogwood vase, which I'm going to show you an example of. It's probably one of the more common pieces that you would find that Consolidated made in the Martele line. They also had at least one piece of the Santa Maria line in the Martele line. They had a piece of vine, which would later be called line 700 in the line, and they had a single piece of dancing nips. It was the 8-inch luncheon plate, which would become a full set of tableware later in the production of Consolidated. And we see that in a 1931 catalog. Next, I'm going to get into the influence of Lalique on Consolidated and what it meant in terms of what was copied and what was not copied. As I mentioned earlier, the Great Paris Exposition of 1925 had a large effect on the thinking of all the glass companies, including Consolidated, and in particular Reuben Haley, who was a designer. Some of the glass that was produced as part of the Martele line was a direct copy of Lalique designs. I'm going to talk about three examples. The first is a vase that Consolidated called lovebirds. And if we had a Lalique example, we could set them side by side. They would match except for the neck. And in Lalique, their version is called Peruches, French. Another example is the Consolidated Cockatoo. This one's in lamp form. In Lalique, they also produced this. It was called their Era's face. Consolidated made the fine pattern, which would later become line 700. Lalique made a very similar design called Satarelles, and the line 700 is almost exactly the same design minus the insects. Satarelles in French means grasshoppers. In our next episode, we'll get into what was introduced in 1927, the Catalonian line of the Glass of Old Spain. If you like this video, plus or minus, please leave a comment on YouTube and let me know how I'm doing. Also, I'd like you to subscribe to this series of videos so you get information when I post a new video. Tell your friends about it. Thank you, and see you at the next episode. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and tell your friends about this channel. Thank you.